Morning. It's April the 23rd, and we're going to try to get our cabbage plants here transplanted into larger containers. I'm starting to see some yellowing on the bottom of these leaves, and as I transplanted the other two that are in the bigger pots there, I seen they were starting to get some root boundness coming out of the bottom of the pots. The roots were starting to spiral around. That's a sure sign that it's time to get your stuff up potted. Now, these are golden acre cabbages, and they're a small head cabbage. And when we were back home, we planted these guys in the ground, and they did great in the ground. They formed a nice, beautiful head. The only bad thing about these cabbages is if you get a lot of rain, the heads like to split. So I told my wife when we get down here to Mississippi, we're going to try these cabbages again because they're great flavor and they're the perfect size for coleslaw, which is what we like to do with them. I said, we'll plant them in containers, and then that way, if we get a lot of rain, once the heads are forming and getting nice size, we'll just pick up the pots and move them in under the awning. So that's why these are in the containers. And we started the seeds early in the season. We got down here to southern Mississippi, and we started them out in 8-ounce cups and up potted them to 16-ounce cups. And then we got them in these things. These are like a 2-gallon pot, and they did great. Like you say, they're looking great. But we're seeing some yellowing, and we're going to get them up into this size pot. And I'm not sure what size it is, but you can see the size difference. It's a lot bigger. These pots were given to me from a friend down here, and it doesn't have any markings on the bottom of them, but you can see the difference here in the size of the pots. So we're going to put them in those pots, and that's going to be it. We're going to let them go, and we'll just fertilize them a little more when we start seeing some deficiencies, and we'll let them finish out in these pots because it's easier to move these pots than it is those 25-gallon pots I have over here where the tomatoes are growing, and the 15-gallon pots where the potatoes are growing. So I'll show you these. It's a nice, beautiful cabbage. Not quite forming the head yet. Still got the leaves coming on. And it's doing great in these containers, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. You see that? It's starting to do a little bit of yellowing. And that could be because it's not getting enough sun being down there on the bottom. But I did notice some root boundness in the other two. So we're going to go ahead and just use this potting mix. I don't really use a lot of potting mix back home in Indiana. But now that we're living down here, it's hard to get everything in the ground the first year down here until we figure out where we're going to plant everything. So we started in pots this year, and we're using this potting mix, and they're looking great just using this Miracle Grow potting mix. So that's what we're going to stick with, and hopefully they'll end up forming a nice head of cabbage. I do have some rabbit manure compost tea mixed up that I will be fertilizing with once they start forming the head. Even though this Miracle Grow said it feeds up to 6 months, well, that might be true for flowers. But if you're planting high leafy vegetables and things like tomatoes and peppers in there, I don't know if you want to trust that 6 months thing. You may have to amend it a little sooner than that, whatever you're growing. But for flowers, it will probably do just fine. So we're going to try to get this thing transplanted into this, I'm going to call it a 4-gallon pot because it's almost double the size of the 2-gallon pot, using this Miracle Grow potting mix. And then once we start seeing some more yellowing on the bottom in these containers, we'll start fertilizing it with our rabbit manure compost tea. And that all I do is I take a 5-gallon bucket and I'll put 2 cups of rabbit manure in the bucket and just fill the bucket up with rainwater. And you can use tap water if you want to or have to because you don't have no other source. But just let it sit and let the chlorine dissipate out. And I'll leave that in there for about a week, stirring it up, and then I'll just pour a little bit off as we need it. And, you know, we've tried cutting it at 10-1, and that worked for the small plants. And now we're up to 5-1, 1 cup of rabbit manure compost tea to 5 cups of water. And I imagine as these plants get a lot larger in these containers, we may even have to get up to 1-1, 1 cup of rabbit tea, 1 cup of water. But we'll go ahead and get this thing transplanted right now into this bigger pot and show you what the root's looking like underneath there. You got to be very careful. I just take my hand and try to get in there and split my fingers like this around the base of this cabbage plant. And get my hand down in there, gently turn it over. And there we go. Can you see that? So it's about time to get this guy planted. So we'll just hold it like this, flip it over. Set it down in there. And I'm trying to leave equal space all the way around so I can just pack this potting mix right around the edges. So let's see what we got here. And we may lose a leaf here or there. I just broke the small one off, but these guys down here, I'm just going to throw them down in there. That'll turn into food for the cabbage. And we'll just gently lift up these leaves. Let me see if I got everything in the shot there. And I'm trying to beat the rain too. We've had rain for the past 3 days, but that's good because we did have a drought. We had a week and a half of no rain. So trying to beat the rain today. And I'll just come around here. Fill that little void around the edge of the plant. Pack it down just a little bit. You don't want to do it too tight. Yep, lost another leaf, but that's life in the big city. the sun. Tap it down a little bit. Maybe a little more over here. I'm not trying to plant this cabbage any deeper at the stalk going into the soil level. We want to keep it the same level. I'm just packing it in around the edges and straighten it up a little bit, mash that down a little bit. And I think we're going to call that good. I'm going to get a little bit of water from my watering can. And basically all I'm doing is washing off the leaves because you can kind of see the clouds rolling in again. So we're going to get rain again today and tomorrow. I think up until the weekend. So I don't want to water it too much because the rains are going to do their job. We're just trying to wash the dirt off the leaves. Water it in just a little bit. When I took those cabbages out of the pot, it rained all night last night and all day yesterday. So they had plenty of water. So we're just going to leave that like that, move them back over here where our other things are. And we're going to call it done for upplanting them. And whatever size heads they make in these containers, we'll be happy with those. Lord willing, they make it. So that's how we upplant our cabbages in the pots. So that if it rains really hard down here, which we have had quite a bit of, we can move them under the carport before we had the heads splitting like back home. Thanks for watching.